Hey folks, I'm gonna go to Reddit for a question. I'm on call all this week, so I'm not gonna drive to the office, so I'm not gonna have any days to film. I can't go to CrossFit because of my on-call shift time, so I won't be driving at all, and it's gonna be a pretty shit week in general. So just from timing perspective, and I'm burnt the hell out. So I gotta try to get some of these done before I go to bed. Just wrapped up the live stream on my main channel, Dev Leader. That was pretty good. It's great that some of you join over for that, so thank you. You can probably tell, for those of you that watched the live stream, I was talking about being introverted, and the difference between the live stream. You can probably tell between that and how I'm talking now. Like, there's nothing left. But I wanted to go to Reddit for this topic, and this one's about how do you deal with a team leader manager who doesn't have time to support you. I'm going to talk specifically about managers, and that's primarily because I don't have experience. As funny as this is going to sound, I don't have experience working under a team lead. Um, at one point, I was a team lead, but basically had full comp view and was a manager. So never got to sort of have the experience of working under a team lead. So the person who posted this was kind of talking about how they have whatever their manager, tech lead, team lead. He never has time to support our team when we need him. And even though we've made this clear, nothing changes. Most of the time, we're on our own. And the questions aren't about code or hard skills, but rather about internal company processes. So, yeah, I think with this kind of thing, you have, when you're someone in that kind of position, you have individuals on the team that are looking to someone for answers. They can be technical, they can be whatever, and then it's like, okay, well, where's our support, right? And this is one of the reasons why when I talk about management, I'm like, it's very much a support role. Um, Different people have different perspectives on manager roles, but I always, frame it like, um, it's my job to support the engineers on my team, and that's it. Like, it's just it. So I feel like when people aren't making time, then they're kind of failing at that role. So, with that said, if you have questions that you want answered before I dive into this one, just a reminder, leave them in the comments. You can message me, Dev Leader, on social media. It's my main YouTube channel as well. Nick Cosentino on LinkedIn. I did start to open up my resume reviews. So thanks to some folks for sending them in from Code Commute. If you go to Dev Leader and you look for my resume review series, at the time I'm recording this, there's one uploaded there, but there's a playlist for it that I'll keep adding to. If you watch that video, it will tell you how to go submit your resume. Um, for now, it's totally free. It literally costs me money to go review your resume because I have to pay an editor. The irony. So it's free for now. If it starts to get super busy, I will probably have no choice but to put it behind like a YouTube membership because I won't be able to sustain it. It's like not feasible for me to go pay $50 to $100 to go review someone's resume. So maybe the channel will blow up and then it's fine and I can do that, but I lose a lot of money doing it. So how to go approach this kind of thing. I wanted to start by saying I've been in situations like this, and I think in the beginning it's not as obvious what's happening, right? And you'll hear me talk about some different perspectives on this. Like as a manager, I will talk about how I can see this happening. So kind of like defending the manager in this position, but also why it's not a good excuse. Sorry, long day. So I think in the beginning when this starts to happen, people don't really notice it. It's not as obvious, right? Hey, had to push the one on one. I had to push someone's one on one today before a meeting. There was a lot. There was basically like an hour ish before a meeting. I just had piles of messages coming on before a meeting I had to go present at, and I was like, I can't even be prepared to present, and the topics that I'm being asked about are going to be in this meeting. I physically don't have capacity, so I have a completely full or empty day tomorrow. It's sure it'll get filled with stuff. So I just told the individual who, in our working relationship, I feel comfortable enough saying this. If it was an employee that was a little bit more either challenging or I know they needed more support, like then I would have to find ways around it. So I could kind of lean into that. So like, hey, I kind of broke one of my rules about moving one-on-ones, but not canceling outright. But again, this kind of thing can happen. Moving one-on-ones, canceling them. Hey, it happened this week, and then like next week, oh, okay, well, it's 2 weeks in a row. It's not so bad. Or it's like it's been every other week or something. So we missed a couple this month. Not so bad. But then it keeps going on, right? Like one-on-ones keep getting canceled. Schedule like I don't know if I've had it a little bit before, where not in one-on-ones, just like not showing up, but like meetings where like you're supposed to be collaborating with them on something and then they just like stop showing up and it's like but like you're one of the stakeholders here, so they're just absent from some of the things. So I have experienced this. um and the first part I was trying to get to here is like it can absolutely kind of sneak in, right? When we read, you can't see my screen, but when you read something like this, it's kind of like, oh, like yeah, it must be this very obvious, abrupt, like they just start canceling one-on-ones or they're never there. It's not always how it starts. So I'm saying that to kind of raise awareness, because if this is a scenario you can kind of imagine could happen, you might be able to pick up on some of the signs as they're happening. So that's the first part I wanted to mention. Can sneak up. Next part though is like, maybe let's talk about like both sides to this, right? So let me start by defending the manager, okay? So I'm putting my manager hat on my bald head, and let's talk about this. So if you haven't seen my other videos, I do try to make it very clear that I like talking about different perspectives. That way we look at things differently. So let me add the disclaimer here before people on the internet get upset. Um, I'm going to try and defend this position, and it's not because I believe that this is a good excuse. Okay. So you could have situations where managers, they're employees too, and they're like, I need to focus on my career. And what I've been told from my manager above me is that I need to focus on these particular things. I don't have time for all this other stuff. They're not looking at that. They've told me this is the path. I need to focus on this stuff. That's what I'm doing. It's me time. I'm getting there. I'm breaking through this. It's time for me. And then they end up carving out more time for themselves to go work on whatever things that they were tasked with, or to meet those expectations. And then that's less time for the team, right? So this is literally a scenario that can happen. If you think about it, every individual is going to have their own motivation that's for themselves in terms of their career advancement. And if a manager is hyper focusing on their growth, and I would feel like this is a bad kind of growth path for a manager to stop focusing on the team. But I can even say, um, I can say this with confidence actually. So I'll use myself as an example. In my entire management career, out of the 12 and a half years I've been doing this, I have been told once to focus more on the team. And the caveat there is that there is metrics that were sent back, and I understand why they're skewed in a particular way. To give you another example, shortly after that, I had almost a perfect score. And I didn't do anything differently. So just to give you an example. So one time ever, and a bit of a sort of technical thing there, I have been told any other time about how to progress in my career, and actually it's only been while at Microsoft, visibility. And guess what? The way that I get visibility, me, is not by coaching my employees better. It's not by understanding them better, having more empathy for them. That's not how I get visibility in my role at all. It's actually quite the opposite. I need to focus on things that I am doing so I can have the visibility. So, interestingly, right, there is this incentive for me to spend less time doing that. Of course, no one would say, oh, spend less time doing it. It's just somehow have more time for these other things for visibility, right? Or whatever it happens to be. But I have personally, in my career, been given this is the path forward, and it has nothing to do with focusing on my team more. So if you think about it, in my position, so again, I'm trying to use this other perspective and defend it, even though I don't think it's a good idea. If I were like, hey, well, it's Nick time. It's time to focus on me and my advancement. I don't have more time. I am literally at the absolute limit of anything I could possibly do for time. Um, so, okay, you need me to sort of make progress in these other things that aren't specific for my team. Okay, so that means my team gets less attention. If that's the only way, and it's time, it's the age of Nick, right? But I will never do that ever, and that might be a career limiting move depending on where I am. But like that's not how I manage teams because I fundamentally disagree with it. So yeah, I can't, it's hard to defend this one, but I think that's a thing that people could do. Another thing that could happen is the same type of thing, but not consciously. So this is just being like spread too thin. This can happen from either inexperience from managers where they're unsure how to prioritize things properly. That's one possibility. Or they're trying their best to make sure that everything is getting done. They have a lot on their plate. Um, this is one that I can empathize with a bit more. I'm literally someone right now who I am completely I'm completely burnt out and there's a lot on my plate. So, as I'm talking about this, I'm trying to be transparent. Like I don't think it's a good excuse to be spread too thin and not do anything about it. If you're spread too thin as a manager and you can't support your team, you need to be raising awareness to that, telling your manager, "Hey, I can't do my job effectively because of this." So right now, I feel personally spread pretty thin. I don't yet feel like that's interfering with my ability to lead the team. If, for example, the scenario I had today where I moved to one on one, if I was like canceling one on ones and like just that was me putting them off and not actually having the one on ones, I'm spread far too thin. So that's a reason that I can empathize with. I don't think it's a good excuse. What else can I think of off the top of my head? Um, there could be other stuff that like you whether maybe it's not spread too thin, but maybe your manager is being pulled into other things, and that could be something that might be a little bit more bureaucratic. It could be they have let's go a completely different direction. Maybe they have uh, some personal life stuff going on. Again, like I'm not saying it's like a good excuse, and I'm not saying that it's like it's fair to you or to other employees, but if we think about it, managers like I am also an employee. I manage people, but I'm also an employee. The same empathy that I would want to give my employees if they had something going on in their personal life and had to step away or whatever, or they had a period where they needed to take more time off work or something, like I would want to support that. The difference though, and why I don't like, it's really hard for me to like try and defend this perspective is like, so yes, if I'm an employee and I need that kind of support, makes sense, but I still have a responsibility to my employees. So I would, if I needed time away, like say, God forbid something was happening and a family member was sick or something like that, and I needed to spend time to take care of them, like I wouldn't just like disappear on my team and not support them. I would want to make sure they had that support. So that's why I'm saying like these are things I think these are all possibilities. I don't think they're like good excuses, but I think that is like a reality that could happen. The reason, like I said, the reason I wanted to talk through that is because like I think it's helpful to try and understand why. It's very easy to observe the sort of the side effect and be upset by it, and I feel like rightfully so. Like I'm not trying to say you should not have that kind of reaction, but I don't know. I like thinking about empathy at least at a minimum. I know the first example I gave is not something you should empathize with, but had to say it. Okay, so when this kind of thing happens, right? What do we do about it? How do we raise awareness? How, like, is it worth your time to raise awareness? Um, when I've talked about this kind of thing in other videos, it's kind of like, I think it's about how much energy you want to put into it. And the way I've described this for myself is like, uh, I don't know if I have like I still haven't landed on like a succinct way of kind of framing up this thought, but like, I feel like I don't want to work anywhere where I don't feel like I want to try and improve things, if that makes sense. So if I found myself working at a job and things got frustrating, and the first thing that I thought was like, time to get out, probably not like a good place I landed at in the first place. I would want to feel like, hey, this isn't going in a way that I think is effective. I should try and speak up about this. I should try to drive some positive change. I should talk to my manager about this, right? Like, for me personally, that's a first step that I want to take. You might be different, and that's totally okay. I'm not saying right or wrong. So for me, that's the case. But it won't always be the case. And what I mean by that is like, if I know that I try to do that and then I met with no support, and I have had this before, where, hey, this I don't think is right, or this isn't optimal, or this is going to cause issues, and I think we need to do something about it. Like, I feel it's important. I have been met with, not a big deal. We don't have to worry about that. Just like, kind of like, forget about it. It's everything's. It's almost like you might be over exaggerating it. Not a big deal. I don't I don't work in that spot anymore. um, because I know if I'm not going to be supported to drive change, and that change isn't going to happen, I will not make it happen, because I will be met with resistance and not support, and then it's not worth my energy. So the way, like, I have my own kind of personal limit for that, my own litmus test for kind of figuring that out. I think everyone's going to be different. I think the older I get and sort of the more experiences I have, uh, kind of like the less shit I'm willing to put up with, if that makes sense. Um, I try my best. Like, I want to, from my time at a startup, I feel like I want to try and get stuff done. Like, whatever we need to do, like, let's make it happen. Let's go. I want to be there. I want to support it. But like I said, if I lose my autonomy and I'm not able to drive change and I'm not supported, then it's not worth my energy. I will go find a place where I can do that, because ultimately I won't succeed if I'm unable to do that. You might be different. You might have a lower tolerance for that, and you're like, nope. Like, as soon as there's like something that's not jiving with you, you're like, I'll just move. That's it. I'm not putting up with it. Or you might be the complete opposite way. So for you to decide, my personal take would be, if I observe this, I would want to have a conversation with my manager. Say, hey, look, my wife actually, she said something this evening that I thought was interesting about. She's a very smart woman. She was saying something along the lines of, when you're trying to have conversations with people, there's a way to, or like, try to find a way that's, instead of like, I think you're doing this wrong, is to express like, don't make it about them, almost like, talk about the observed effect, because it becomes less personal. If I was like, Billy, you're doing this wrong because it's something I don't like or I don't think is good, you're more likely to be defensive if your name's Billy. If it's not Billy, maybe you're not defensive, but um, you're more likely to want to defend that position and be like, meet me with resistance on it. But if I said, hey, I observe, and then I talk about the effect that's observed, and I'm like, that seems like a bad effect, doesn't it? Billy might be like, I agree. That's not a thing we want. And then we can dive into that a little bit more. And I can actually kind of include Billy in terms of like how we arrive at a more positive kind of solution, like, together. Right. So I realize a lot of this sounds like it's very, in what dream world do you live? I get it. But the principle there, right? So I would try to talk with my manager about that to raise awareness, because then it's like, hey, look, I'm putting up my hand to say I think something has to change. And as funny as I was reading through some of the comments on this thread, some people were kind of like this, like, hey, I would raise awareness about this, like, right, something's got to change. The challenge is if things don't change. Or like, how much energy do you put into that? You raise awareness and it's like, okay, yeah, no, I get it. Got to make it change. And then, a month goes by and you're like, I got to raise awareness again. Oh, no, no, it's okay. Like, yeah, I totally hear you. Like, well, things will change. Like, I'll start going to the one-on-ones that I stopped showing up for or something. Or start going to like the stand-up meetings, whatever it happens to be. Right. And then nothing's changing. Like, how long do you go on for like that? Do you escalate it? Do you say, okay, like this is having a bigger effect on the team? I need to go above and beyond. I have done this in my career. I have been in situations in my career where I just felt so passionately that we were um, I don't know if I can say being neglected, being mismanaged sounds like too harsh, but like things weren't okay. And it was like trying to raise awareness all the time until it was like, okay, like time to go up higher, um, because I cared and nothing was changing. So that's what I did. At different stages of my career, and I'm including like what could be in the future, there may be times where like I'm just like I simply do not have energy to invest into that. Yes, I care about a particular thing, maybe not enough that I want to go invest that much energy. In this scenario that I'm describing, I was like, I will put all my energy into this. So I think that's a thing that you have to figure out for yourself, because unfortunately, if you have familiarity with your work environment, you might feel like maybe it is more, maybe toxic's too strong of a word, but like lack of support. Maybe people include toxic in that, I don't know. But if it's kind of like a pattern in the culture, you might be picking up on this and you're like, "Oh shit, like like that is kind of the culture around me, and like now my manager's like is part of that, and like I don't know if that's really going to change." So the reason I'm bringing this up is like I think that we're ultimately met with how much and what kind of action do we want to take versus when is it time to go. So that's why I was saying for me, it's like once I feel like I'm not supported and I have tried to raise awareness, usually it's at least raise the awareness, and then if things aren't changing, it's time for me, because I'm not going to grow here and I'm not going to be supported. Now, let's go down the other path. So you raise awareness and you get some acknowledgement from the manager. Okay, hey, like thanks for raising this awareness. Like, and maybe they have an excuse and this bothers you, right? Like, oh, just been super busy. We had whatever deliverables, and you're kind of feeling like, yeah, but now you're prioritizing those other things over me or over the team. Like, I see you doing it with the other people too. Like, that can feel frustrating, right? So, if I channel what my wife was saying, like I said, she's very smart. Um, it's not, hey, manager, like, you're bad and you should feel bad and stop being bad. It could be like, hey, just a heads up, like, this is like, I don't even have the words off the top of my head. But like addressing the effect on the team, right? Not me telling you, manager, like stop doing the bad thing to the team. It's, hey, the team is feeling pretty burnt out, right? They've been struggling with a bunch of things and we can't seem to get the support we need. So I wanted to raise that awareness to you, right? Like, I'm not telling you what you need to change, but I'm telling you I observe this going on with the team. I've had employees tell me this kind of stuff. Not the not that specifically, but I've had employees approach it in a great way. And I like, it's good feedback for me. They've told me about this about people that don't report to me, because in the greater team, and I'm not saying at Microsoft or at the startup, I'm just saying in my career, because I'm not going to talk about either part specifically, but I've had people say, hey, heads up to you, like this is my observation of what's going on, and it could be within my team. I've had that, and I've had it outside of my direct reports, and people are saying it's not because of so and so, or it's not because of you, but here is the thing I observe with those individuals. Because at the end of the day, that's going to be if they're reporting to me, that's going to be my responsibility. If they're not reporting to me, my gut tells me it's still my responsibility to also try and raise awareness. Right? If I have This is something I've tried to lean into my entire career. If I have frontline employees telling me like, "Hey, something's up," I'm going to listen and I'm going to try to raise awareness to it. And that's something that I've tried to do my entire career, because for 8 years of my career before Microsoft, I was an individual contributor and a manager at the same time. I was on the front line and a middle manager. It's the worst of all the worlds. And I got to do that. Now I just have the worst of the management world, being a middle manager. So I understand, right? And it's important for me to be able to have that kind of trust relationship with people I work with, so that they will tell me stuff like that. They're not ratting on people, they're not blaming people, but they're like, "Hey, heads up, like I know you give a shit about this stuff, so that's why I'm telling you. I trust that you want to make these things better. Here's some observation. Here's some information about what I see going on, and like I'm telling you that because I trust that you can try and do something, or at least that you'll, raise awareness so someone else can, and not that you're just going to say, "Oh, thanks," and then like forget about it for forever." So for me, those types of working relationships are critical. So it's something from in terms of my management leadership style, I try to lean into that. I don't know where this conversation's going because I'm so completely burnt out. Um, I thought that this was a good one to talk through. So um, I think raising awareness is important if you're willing to. Getting the acknowledgement is a first step. Trying to frame it that it's not a "Hey, quit screwing it up, you're hurting the team," but kind of observations about the team I think are helpful. Um, and honestly, like depending on the situation, I can absolutely imagine situations where you kind of rise to the occasion, right? Depends on the work culture, depends on the company size and the formality. I will share this. I don't know if I've said this on video before, so I don't know. I have absolutely in my career observed what I felt like was like a team not being managed correctly, and I have absolutely sort of worked my way to trying to help that team in terms of getting them on track, getting them the support they need, because they were simply not. It was extra work. It was a ton of extra work. Um, but it was like all I can do is raise awareness and nothing's changing. Nothing's changing. Nothing's changing. And I'm going, this is a critical part of the business. I give a shit. You guys don't? Okay. And then tried working to drive change, get things into a positive spot because something needed to change. Do I have energy for that kind of stuff ever again in my career? I'm not sure. But you may find yourself in a situation like that. Um, it might be that your manager's actually, just to give you an example, maybe you got 25 people on your team reporting to your manager, and it's like, hey, maybe you rise to the occasion and it's actually a good opportunity that your manager can have a team lead, right? So you're maybe not a peer to your manager, you're still reporting to your manager, but they kind of have like, they'll give you some direct reports. That could be an amazing career opportunity. It's kind of what happened to me in my early stage of my career, but you might have an opportunity like that, but it's going to require that your manager has some awareness or maybe their skip level. But the point is, you need to decide for yourself how much energy goes into it, how much you want to drive and push that. But personally, I would say if you do not feel supported, it doesn't have to be from your direct manager, it could be your skip, whoever. If you don't have support, it's going to be very hard and you might feel like you're fighting a losing battle. So I would just caution you against that so that you don't feel like, you put so much energy into something and like get burnt out from it. So I think I'll stop rambling. So thanks so much for watching. Like I said, Dev Leader, check out the resume review series if you're interested in that. And of course, if you have questions you want answered, comments. If you want to write something lengthier, be kept anonymous, look for dev leader. And people were asking for it. I'm going to try and find a way to get all of these on to Spotify. But I have like 150 videos. I don't know how many gigs of video I have to go upload to Spotify. I don't even think people are going to watch the video on Spotify, but I'm not going to upload just the audio. That's so dumb. I have the video. So I'll figure that out. And that way, the people that are running, commuting, cleaning their house, I heard all sorts of things. That's so cool. Thanks for kind of tuning in while you're doing that stuff. It's awesome to hear. So I will figure out a solution, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again.